the importance of flexibility in warehouse logistics. I'm joined today by Andy Willliams. He is Executive Vice President of Sales for North America with Exotec. Hi, Andy.
Hey, how you doing today?
Good, and thanks for being with me today. And this word flexibility is certainly flexible, isn't it? It can mean just about anything. But from the context of warehouse logistics and warehouse operations, define what you think the word flexibility means.
Yeah, it means several different things. We've seen volatility and uncertainty rear their ugly heads in the recent past with COVID and the recovery from COVID. And as businesses are planning towards the future, there's many unknowns. It's not as consistent in what channel I'm using, what my order profile is, what my customer base is. And when you think about warehousing and how, as that relates to supply chain, that can mean big changes in terms of things like your SKU profile, SKU proliferation, your order type. So whether I'm picking eaches or cartons, and as customers are looking to modernize their supply chains towards the future, how do they guard against those unknowns while still taking advantage of the productivity increases and other logistical advantages you can get with robotics?
So why now? I mean, these have been issues in warehousing and logistics, I would think, forever. What is driving the need now that makes flexibility even increasingly more important in the warehouse?
Yeah, a few different factors. Certainly you have these kind of macro level trends like social media or changing pressures in supply chain or global events that are maybe more prevalent now than in the past. But you also have this evolution of technology that's happened in the past 5 to 10 years, and robotics technology was just not mature enough for widespread adoption, and maybe wasn't at the right price level or wasn't the right understanding level on the customer side as well. So it's just the convergence of those two. I think now more than ever, there's a lot of change in the way companies are going to market. From the Amazon effect or retail companies trying to streamline their supply chain as part of a strategic advantage, or the rise of 3PLs to help smaller players come to the market. And so that's another way that robotics is kind of guarding against this uncertainty into the future. So with robotics compared to traditional automation, for instance, you can invest kind of as you go. You don't have to have this incredibly engineered approach that is reliant upon a bunch of unknown forecasts into the future, and can be protecting you and giving you much more resiliency and less sensitivity towards the future.
But I would think that if you purchase a fleet of robots in a warehouse, you're locked into that fleet, whether you need it or not, at any given time during the year. And then there's other times in the year when you might need even more than that fleet because you're at a peak season. That sounds to me like the opposite of flexibility. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, you're wrong. So,
Great. Okay.
that's one of the big advantages I think with robots. You can literally, with this complete decoupling, of storage and throughput. If I'm, for instance, an e-commerce customer and I have a 4 or 5x peak to average ratio as a result of Black Friday, I can add robots during that period to help me increase my productivity. It's a lot easier than finding a bunch of temporary workers for a 2 or 3 month period. So it also can protect in other ways. If I'm a business that's selling in multiple channels and all of a sudden I have a big switch in my case volume versus my each volume as a result of retail and e-commerce, that can produce a lot more throughput, for instance, on the order side of the house, and robots can help you with that as well.
Do you expect the need for flexibility to subside as things get back to quote unquote normal or not?
I don't believe that the need for flexibility will decrease for a lot of those reasons we just mentioned, but also the evolution of supply chain itself. When you look at companies entertaining their options now, it's no longer just doing it directly. A lot of new models have come about with 4PLs, kind of the rise of 3PLs. And even within those types of businesses, there's a new level of flexibility that's required to handle many different customers' businesses. So, we see it increasing, and I think that the part of the curve that we're on is more really the steep trajectory in terms of adoption of robotics and the increasing need for flexibility.
Does flexibility have to come at the expense of performance?
Generally speaking, no. There are several different types of flexibility, as we've discussed, but robots don't really care what they're doing. If they're, as part of their design, able to handle a wide variety of load units or logistics missions, they don't really care. They just operate as they've been instructed. So there can be some, impacts for sure with drastic changes, but a big part of the beauty of robotic systems is they're very easily adaptable and expandable. So if I need to add another pick station or a robotic pick arm or another connection point to a different part of the warehouse, it's very easy to expand it.
So this is the new normal, the need for flexibility.
I think it is. If you look at the show compared to 4 years ago, more of the show is in the robotics part.
You're talking about ProMat now.
I'm talking about ProMat.
Right.
And I think that's reflective of this general trend. Robotics have picked up so much steam. A lot of the software technologies that support robotics have become more mature and more flexible in standard ways. That's even reducing risk further for companies to adopt robotics automation. And we really see it continuing and growing significantly in the coming years, outpacing the market, I would say, significantly.
Andy, thank you so much for explaining to me what flexibility really means in a warehouse environment today. I really appreciate that. I would like to take a moment, though, to ask you about Exotec. Mm-hmm. Where does it fit into the picture of what we're talking about today?
Yeah, so Exotec is a goods-to-person robotic system. We also do more parts of the warehouse with our software as well, which is called Deep Sky. But Exotec is a 3D ASRS system that goes inside and outside of racks, right? So it's a complete decoupling between storage and throughput and allows customers to grow their business as it actually happens, as opposed to planning far into the future. So you can install racks or robots as needed and change with your customers as a business as they change. So if that means to add different pick stations or other types of connectivity points, it's all modular, flexible components of the system that plug straight into a standard software and supports flexibility really well.
Andy, thanks again for enlightening me on the situation with regard to the need for flexibility in the warehouse, as well as telling me a little bit about Exotec as well. Thanks for being with me today.
Thank you.
I've been speaking with Andy Willliams of Exotec. Thank you very much for watching.